Good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank you all for coming to this very important meeting as we do the people's word. At this time, would you please stand for the invocation, which will be given by Reverend Larry Ugardi from First Lutheran Church of Portsmouth and be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor, good to see you.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, beloved fellow citizens of Portsmouth and friends, let us pray. Dear Lord and Father of all mankind, we remember tonight all those who have died in our nation's service over the years. Because our beloved city has commemorated these men and women of courage for the past 128 years, first on the Day of Remembrance and later on the day called Memorial Day, our prayer tonight is especially fitting. Almighty God, you loved us all into being, and you bless us now with each precious moment of life. Our hearts are grateful for your loving faithfulness. Grateful, too, are we for the millions of loving acts that blossom from human hearts around us every day. On this upcoming Memorial Day, May the 28th, 2012, help us to remember with deepest gratitude and awe the extraordinary men and women who out of love gave their lives to protect our beloved country and preserve our liberty. Keep these fallen heroes in your loving care. Help us to be ever mindful as well of the wounded heroes in our midst, who with valorous hearts risked their lives that we might prosper and that our children's futures might be secured. And let us ne'er forget the biblical assurance that greater love has no one, that he or she lay down one's life for another. In the name of the one who died for us all, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very, very much, Reverend, and thank you for all you do in our community, sir. Good to see you. Members of council, will you please indicate your presence electronically?
7 members of City Council are present.
Okay. Members of City Council, you have before you consideration the minutes of a call meeting of May the 7th, 2012, a call meeting of May the 8th, 2012, a regular meeting of May 8th, 2012, and a call meeting of May 15th, 2012. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
Move adoption.
Okay.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you will be voting electronically. The minutes are adopted 7-0.
Okay, very good. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. 12-216, presentation. Presentation of special lapel pins to newly appointed board and commission members. If the following would please join the Vice Mayor at the Sergeant-at-Arms desk. With the Americans with Disabilities Commission, Ms. Nancy Gresham and Mr. Charles Kelly. With the Portsmouth Parking Authority, Mr. James Overton. And the Portsmouth Port and Industrial Commission, Ms. Vanchetta Townsend.
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
It is my pleasure to present these pins to these distinguished individuals who have volunteered to serve the city, and I want you to know that we are very thankful for that. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to serve and haven't had the opportunity to fill out an application, you can do it tonight. You can do it online. We welcome you in this city to help us make Portsmouth a better place in which to live. I have a young lady who wants to say something.
Uh-oh. That's you.
Good evening. Thank
Good
you
evening.
so much. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you. I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to the next 5 years.
Oh, my.
I volunteered because I have an interest in what happens with the ports in Portsmouth. Not only am I a resident, but I'm actually very passionate about what happens with our transportation, what happens with our logistics, and our ports and waterways.
I'm gonna pass it down. I've spoken.
Good evening. It's an honor to have a chance to volunteer and serve the Americans with Disabilities. People who are disabled and handicapped are part of our city too. They're important. They too have something to give. And just like we need to take care of everybody, we need to take care of them. Because we're all special in God's eyes and everyone has a purpose. Thank you.
Amen.
Very good. Thank you.
Again, if you'd like to serve, please stand up and be counted. Thank you very much.
All right. Good job. I got one other item. This is you. Thank you, Vice Mayor. While we're still under presentations, I'd like to, if I would, call the Sergeant Major Clyde Toller up, and we have a little something for our clerk. That's right, that's a surprise. Sergeant Major, if you would, sir. You need to join him over there. Where's the mic? What'd you do with the mic? Oh, good. Sir, 5 minutes is 5 minutes.
On behalf of the Fleet Reserve Association, which is the FRA, Branch 37 and Unit 37 of Portsmouth, Virginia, which I am also a member, so is Councilman Whitehurst up there. But you have been with us for 7 years during this parade. I went all up in the mountain trying to find you a golf cart, but I couldn't find one. But anyway, I want to present you with this, and it says from the United States Coast Guard and the Navy and the Marine Corps. We have somewhere over 500 some branches, about anywhere from 300 to 200,000 seagoing, active duty, and retirees. And since this is Memorial Day, and this is your last year, we want to make sure that you go out with a bang, because we hate to flatten the tires on that little golf cart. But anyway, I didn't get a chance to get this completed for you. The lady spelled your name wrong, so I didn't want to give it to you like that.
Don't tell everything, Sergeant.
Anyway, I want you to hold that. But this is what you're going to receive. Once I get your plate on there, I will bring it back to you personally, make sure that you get it. But on behalf of all the veterans in the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Coast Guard, we congratulate you and thank you for your service.
Well done, Sergeant Major. They thought we couldn't keep a secret. And you went and told them the plaque's all screwed up. Anyway, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will notice a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice the yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your remarks at that time. Unfinished business. 12-183, use permit. Item A, resolution granting the request of Maria Peed with Broad Street Christian Academy an amendment to a use permit approved on February 24, 2004, by modifying the adopted conditions to allow children up to 12 years of age, where the original permit limited children up to 4 years of age only. UP 12-03, first reading vote 7-0. Vision principle, a robust economy for working men and women. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers. Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically.
Okay, very good.
This item is adopted 7-0. City Manager's Report 12-217, adoption of an ordinance to de-obligate $2,218,216 of unexpended appropriation authority in closed capital improvement projects to reprogram $4,748,174 of bond proceeds and to appropriate $6,966,390 to cover expenses and obligations in various active capital improvement projects. Vision principle, a robust economy for working men and women, effective responsive government, and pride of past. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
Adoption.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you're voting electronically.
Okay, very good.
This item is adopted 7-0. 12-218, adoption of an ordinance to amend sections 22-575 and 22-578 of the Code of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, to permit the city manager to authorize backing into a parking space at the curb and to impose a $50 fine for unauthorized parking in the Old Town Historic District between certain hours. Vision principles, change and new direction, and neighborhoods in a sense of community. Electronic roll call, and I have registered speakers. Our first speaker is Mr. Jack Erickson.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm Jack Erickson. I'm the treasurer of the Old Town Civic League. You're all aware of the problems that have gone on in Old Town with late-night revelry and vandalism. Last year, in August, the members of the Civic League told Peter Youngblood, our president, to approach the city to see about adopting some sort of restricted parking ordinance for nights in Old Town. He did that. There was a meeting here attended by several people last September, I believe. And at that time, we came up with a proposal that had a fine of about $100. That was vetted, discussed by people, and a couple of months ago, Mr. Youngblood and I met with the Portsmouth Independent Restaurant Association, and they felt that the $100 was too high. I asked their representative what they thought was appropriate. They said $50. So we agreed on $50, and that was announced at one of the community meetings, the one that we had at IC Norcom High School, where Peter got up and told you that an arrangement had been agreed upon. I think that's the origin of the $50. We think it's an appropriate amount. Throughout this entire time, when we've talked about this restriction on parking, the key has been get a fine that's going to catch somebody's attention. Because if it's a nominal fine, it's not going to work. We've discussed it with the police, other people, and we want something that is going to induce people to park on the south side of High Street instead of in Old Town. So on that note, I'll simply urge you to approve this ordinance, and I'll ask the folks here from Old Town that made it out in the rain tonight to stand up and indicate their support. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir. Well done.
Our next speaker is Mr. Greg George. Is he here?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I'm here in support of parking enforcement in downtown Portsmouth. The fine really doesn't matter unless you have the enforcement. I'm delighted to hear that the mansion is not being blamed for all the ills in downtown Portsmouth, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir.
Members of council, there are no additional speakers on this item.
Second.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically.
Okay, We're good.
This item is adopted 7-0. 12-219, adoption of an ordinance to appropriate the sum of $843,300 in the FY 2011-12 City Garage Fund from the unappropriated fund balance in the FY 2011-12 City Garage Fund to pay increased fuel costs. Vision principle, change, and new directions. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers. Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically.
Okay, we're good.
This item is adopted 7-0. 12-220, adoption of an ordinance, one, authorizing the city manager to sign an agreement with and accept $112,000 in federal highway administration funds from VDOT. Two, approving a project programming resolution requesting VDOT to establish an urban system highway project for citywide signal timing Phase 2 of the city's traffic signal system. And three, appropriating $112,000 to a new project in the FY 2012-13 Capital Improvements Fund for this traffic signal timing upgrade. Vision principle, change and new directions, and neighborhoods and sense of community. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
Move adoption.
Second.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you will be voting electronically.
Okay.
This item is adopted 7-0. 12-221, adoption of a resolution authorizing transfer of a .161 acre parcel of land adjacent to the downtown tunnel ventilation building to the Virginia Department of Transportation in exchange for VDOT's granting a break in the limited access boundary of Bart Street adjacent to the Crawford Street roundabout to allow for the construction of the new court access road. Vision principle, change and new direction. Electronic roll call, and I have a registered speaker. And our speaker is Mr. Mark Godaldig-Yatrovsky.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow citizens. I rise in the hope that this particular measure would not preclude the city's building an access road using the public-private transportation authority legislation that has served us so well in other circumstances. And I say that facetiously, but I do believe that this particular access route is something that we do not need in the city of Portsmouth. It's being forced down our throats, and I think that we should do whatever we can to put the burden in terms of the cost on those users of the route, which is to say the judiciary of this city. If they want it, let them pay for it. Put a toll on it.
Don't say tolls.
Put a toll on it. Do I need Beyonce in here? If you liked it, you should have put a ring on it. Put a toll on it. It's not as though there's a monopoly. It's not like the Midtown and downtown tunnels. If you don't want to go that way, you can use Port Center Parkway, come Court Street, like, most of us. But if you're in a big rush, if you're so important that you can't be caught up in traffic during the peak times of the day, well, by all means, spend your money to traverse that road, but don't put it on the taxpayers. The taxpayers are already reeling under a $78 million debt obligation that represents double the second largest public investment that's occurred in the time I've lived in Portsmouth and probably in all of Portsmouth history. And that's the Renaissance Hotel and Conference Center. That was $39 million. It didn't have to happen this way. But some individuals in the city felt that they were going to bargain hard with the city council, and they used their knowledge of the judicial system to press the point. And now the taxpayers are stuck with that debt obligation, and it will probably exceed my lifetime. I'm not planning to jump in front of any buses anytime soon, but I can see the end point kind of off in the distance. And it does not include the repayment of the debt on that obligation. So yes, if they want it, put a toll on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor Whitehurst,
Thank you, Mayor.
you want to respond to Beyonce part or the tolls or which?
I'd ask the city manager if the road is built, where the funding will come from.
Currently, the project is funded at $78 million. If you remember, we have done a couple of bands to finance the project using the capital dollars that we have now, so it would still come from that source, the capital dollars.
Within the $78 million. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. We have no additional speakers on this item. Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you're voting electronically. This item is adopted 7-0. New business 12-222, boards and commissions. Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mayor, members of council, there's one appointment for council's consideration tonight, and that's an appointment to the Portsmouth Ports and Industrial Committee, PPIC, and I'd like to put forth Carl Vonner's name.
Second.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you would be voting electronically.
Thank you.
This item is adopted 7-0. 12-223, item submitted by council members. We have an adoption of an ordinance, and I will let you know what that ordinance is in just a second. Okay. Yes, thank you. Adoption of an ordinance to appropriate $4.9 million in the FY 2012-13 Education Fund for the purpose of providing additional funding for the Portsmouth Public Schools operating budget and $2,809,460, to various FY 2011-12 operating budget funds for the purpose of making one-time 3% bonus payments to city employees and to employees of constitutional officers, and a one-time 1.5% bonus payment to retirees of the Portsmouth Supplemental Retirement System and the Fire and Police System. Electronic roll call, and I have a registered speaker, Mr. Mark Godaldi-Gutrovsky.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow citizens. I love when I follow myself. I don't have to mess with this microphone again. Nobody on council should say I'm blindsiding you with this, because you know how I feel about items submitted by council members being used to enact legislation. I do not understand why it's necessary to deal with this particular item in the manner that it's been presented. We had 2 public hearings on the budget, and now you're effectively making a budget amendment Where's the public hearing? Yes, I signed up for this because I read through the agenda. Even items that get put on the agenda at the 11th hour, and if something catches my eye, I will sign up to speak on it. But everybody else isn't as vigilant. And this is something that deserves discussion in the community before it's acted on. There are items on there that are meritorious. There are items on there that are questionable. The clerk read a summary, but there are more than this many items involving allocation of those funds. And the public has not had a chance to see nor hear a discussion of what's in and what's out. I don't feel that this is operating in the best interests of transparency. So I would urge you to defer this to your June meeting and give appropriate advance notice so those people who took the time to speak in the earlier public hearings when this sum of money was not available to be disposed of and discussed would have an opportunity to evaluate it and to submit their opinions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. Just want to let you know we have to approve the budget and approve this item for the school system because they've got contracts they need to put out and a lot of other issues that they're going to take up, I believe, on the 24th or 25th. So thank you for your comments, though, sir. Councilman Cherry. Oh, excuse me. He wants to speak again. You're following yourself again. Go ahead.
Just appropriate the part for the school system and let the other piece be reviewed by the public.
Okay.
Thank you,
sir. Councilman Cherry?
Yeah, I was going to say, Mayor, the other piece is not really, it's current fiscal year, and it's not have anything to do with the budget that goes in effect on 1 July. Right. But I'll let the manager elaborate on that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of council. Mr. Udoldzewski, good evening. The action, as Mr. Chair has mentioned, was based on council's deliberation at your work session last week. That would actually award a 3% bonus to city employees with council's intent and action of that taking place in the current fiscal year. So the current fiscal year would end June 30th. So we had asked council to consider taking action on this item to actually identify the revenue source, which was some of the revenue that was actually returned back to the city from the school system. And in addition to that, being able to execute the payroll so we can actually get in the appropriate payroll run before this fiscal year is out. So that actually will take place in the June time frame.
Okay. And I think we're also saving about $200,000 by doing it this year versus the out years. Am I correct on that, sir?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. You're really talking about the difference between now and this current fiscal year and July 1st. Right. As we've reported during the budget process, there are some changes to the Virginia retirement system where the employee cost share actually shifts to the employee, and that has actually been offset by about a 5.7% adjustment across the board to keep the employees whole. That action actually raises the additional cost to the retirement system. Right. So the action now has that 3% on a lower amount as opposed to the more expensive after July 1st.
Very good. Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk.
Members of council, I have no additional registered speak. Okay. We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. And you're voting electronically.
Okay.
Mayor, this item is adopted 7-0.
Okay, very good.
We
Thank
are
you.
still in the session of items submitted by council members.
Okay. Let me first of all say it was actually mentioned earlier in our work session. We were doing a review of our Parks and Rec. One of the consultants had mentioned the impressive response to volunteerism in our city and how people are always engaged in getting involved in whatever it is we do. And it makes you feel good to hear those types of things from people outside that come in and take a look. And along those veins, I want to thank all of the people that showed up last week for Relay for Life. We had a huge turnout. They raised a bunch of money, and it was Pastor Potter was there and myself for the opening ceremony, but we had a lot of people that showed out in support. And again, it makes you feel good when you're out and seeing all of the citizens there at TCC and how well that was conducted. Also, Saturday morning, we had the Walk for Hunger for Oasis, and we had, once again, a huge turnout of people that came to walk and did things. We had a lot of corporations. We actually had 2 high schools there. Wilson High School and Churchland High School had a large contingent of kids that came out and walked, and Bon Secours, Walgreens, and a number of other organizations came out. And again, we had Bruce Smith, Professional Hall of Fame retired football player who married a Portsmouth gal, and I had to remind him he married up. And he actually spoke, and it was done extremely well. So I want to thank everyone for coming out to that, and I also want to congratulate all of our high school males. Saturday morning, also after the walk, I attended a breakfast for 200-plus men in Virginia Beach where they recognized all of the young African-American males in the cities in the region that had a 3.0 grade point average and above. I believe you remember that, Vice Mayor, and it was well done. And we had over 500 young men there that were recognized, and quite a few of those from the city of Portsmouth. And so again, that was another great event. That afternoon, I went over to Newport News to their Performing Arts Center. Congressman Bobby Scott and all of the congressmen throughout the country have their congressional art competition, and we went over. Miss Randall accompanied me. Dr. Daniels was there. The school board chair, Mr. Bridgeford, was there. And am I missing someone? And it was outstanding. We had young people from all over the district that had art exhibits on display. I left my note, but I think it was 4 kids from Portsmouth. It was 3 of them from Churchland High School and 1 young lady from IC Norcom that had exhibits actually up in there. And again, it was well done, and I want to congratulate each one of those kids that were in there. Congressman Scott is a natural. Oh, there's Mr. Bridgeford there, Chairman. He was there, and we recognize all of those young people. And so with that, Mr. Whitehurst.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. During the public work session we just had, I tried to bring up some issues that I think we need to be cognizant of. We had, in addition to the $33 million or the 15% that we have as our reserve requirement, when the dust settles on what we get in the school system, we have $5.6 million. I think there's some issues we need to talk about before we close the books. We still have the unfunded retirement to consider. We need to fund the auditor. We have the Churchland Bridge, Social Security offset, sound wall, and economic development. And I think we need to talk about that. And instead of leaving $5.6 million, of course, we can also return it back to the taxpayers too. I think we need to talk about that because I'm not comfortable having a reserve of $33 million, which is 15%, then carrying over another $5.6 million on top of that. I think we need to schedule a time to talk about that, Mayor, and take some action on some of these items.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Moody?
I haven't finished yet.
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, he's not done yet, he said.
Oh, the Vice Mayor's not done. I will yield.
I talked to the city manager on this. We have a bunch of furniture and fixtures and whatever in the Craddock High School. My recommendation to the city manager, as one person, was to the alumni and friends of Craddock High School are willing to accept if it's gifted to them for $1, whatever it is, and actually go in and auction it off. There are people from Craddock that would buy just about anything with the name Craddock on it. I would like us to deal with that in some way, to maybe agree to that or some other project to get this stuff, to get the building clean.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moody?
Thank you, Mayor. A little while ago when the Sergeant Major gave our city clerk, Deborah White, a plaque in recognition for her long service as the Memorial Day Parade Coordinator, it reminded me that the Memorial Day Parade is coming up very quickly on May the 28th, and I believe that will be one of the nation's oldest parades. I think it will be our 128th parade.
Yep, the oldest parade.
One of the nation's oldest. The other thing that I want to bring up, a little while ago, we appropriated almost $850,000 due to increase fuel expense, which is certainly no surprise. All of us feel pain at the pump these days. I would like, and I forwarded some information to council, and I know it was right in the middle of the budget season, so it probably didn't get very widely read, but it was idling policy that some localities have put forth to help offset some of that expense. And whether that's the direction we go or not, we need to come up with a fuel policy, fuel efficiency policy, if you may. And, you know, for the number of miles that we drive as a municipality, I'm certain there's a lot of money that can be saved there. And whether it's buying more fuel-efficient vehicles, changing some to natural gas, or LP gas, I guess, natural gas, you'd have to have a pipeline, wouldn't you? That wouldn't be too practical. But there's just so many things, and the idling policy can make a big difference. And obviously that's when you run into 7-Eleven for a cup of coffee, you turn the vehicle off, or wherever you're going, you turn the vehicle off. You multiply that by the number of vehicles that we have in the city, and I'm certain that we can save a lot of money. But in any event, I would like to see maybe staff come up with some ideas that they could present council with, where we can maybe next year, if we have to appropriate any, it's not to the tune of $843,000. Hopefully, it would be much less than that. But that would be my suggestion. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And let me just wrap up by saying we do have Monday our Memorial Day Parade, 128th consecutive, and we're going to be extremely honored and pleased to have as our master of ceremony Councilman Steve Hurtick. And so I want to wish him well and hope he can outdo the bishop, who did an outstanding job last year. But I got to tell you, I've been told, and I've actually been in attendance when Miss Simmons hosted it, and she's probably the best I've seen at that. So not to put any pressure on either one of you guys, and I actually see her over here. How you doing, Miss Simmons? So I want to wish you well and hope everyone come out Monday at 11 o'clock for our parade, and we will have a dandy of a time. As well, Friday, we all know Umoja Festival. That means it's going to what? Rain, right? Every time we have it, it rains. So Friday, Saturday, I don't want to jinx it, but you know it's going to happen. But Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we'll have a Umoja Festival. And Ms. Randall, any comments on our Umoja Festival, what we're anticipating? Understand Fantasia is supposed to be there Saturday night? Yes. She's a singer, I believe. But any comments there, Ms. Randall, before we allow our master of ceremony for the parade to say something about raising the bar just a tad?
Well, the only thing that I would say is that make sure you're there, because if you're not there, we'll miss you. And when we see you at the next meeting, we'll ask you for your excuse. So the children don't show up in school.
They need an excuse. That's right.
We're going to be asking for your written excuse. You don't see your faces.
Okay.
So it should be a grand affair.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mr. Hurtick.
Mr. Mayor, I can honestly say that, trying to be the MC of the oldest continuous Memorial Day parade in the country is certainly a very large set of shoes to fill after the bishop and our good friend Elizabeth Simmons, but I'll try not to blow it. And I do think that Sergeant Major Toller's uniformed appearance tonight reminds us how much we have to be grateful for, and Absolutely. How much we have to be grateful to the people who have served us. And I take this responsibility with great pride, and I will try to give the honor due the occasion. And Sergeant Major, it was good to see you in uniform tonight. I might just observe your shirt could use a little starch.
Thank you, Mr. Hurtick. Councilman Moody, you had one other comment?
I was going to mention this earlier, but along with Ms. Simmons being in the audience, we have former council member Simmons in the audience, and good to see you, Elizabeth.
All right. Good. Okay, with that, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. 12-224, report on pending items, and we have none this evening. 12-225, non-agenda speakers, and our first speaker is Mr. Steve Carroll, and he's followed by Mr. Clyde Toller.
Starch or not, Clyde, you still look sharp. My name's Steve Carroll. I reside at 3112 River Ridge Drive. What is truth? That's what Pilate said to Jesus before he took the coward's path and caved into political expedience. Our school board has repeatedly claimed that they have no surplus, yet a CFO report says they did and have generated those surpluses for 5 years. You know, I did a little old school math. Currently, our school budget of about $135 million divided by 13,500 students nets about $10,000 a year per student. There's no shortage of money for the schools. What is a shortage of in the school system is truth and candor. Several weeks ago, I attended a school board meeting, and little was discussed about improving the educational output of our students. But what I did hear for 15 minutes was several members of the school board debating about a 3% repair contract going to a minority contractor. Doesn't matter if the contractor was competent, didn't matter if it was cost effective as long as it went to a minority. Political correctness seems to be the priority, not education. The Department of Education has dumbed down public education into a monument of mediocrity in the name of equality and diversity. Think on this. From one-room schoolhouses and homes without indoor plumbing or electricity, this country produced renowned presidents, scientists, doctors, military icons, and true God-fearing theologians. Young men who wore their pants at the waist and they were held up with a belt instead of punks today who wear their breeches at their knees. Young women who wore neat but simple dresses to school and whose language and demeanor befitted the compliment young lady. Common sense and rewarding excellence have been replaced with SOLs and 50% scores for doing nothing. Students are spoon-fed high school diplomas but can't figure their way out of a wet paper bag in the real world. I've worked for the same company for 35 years, 30 years in management, and I can tell you firsthand the lack of reading skills and math skills is atrocious for new applicants. You would be stunned and would not believe if I told you how many applicants fail the drug screening. I began college at age 43. I obtained a 2-year degree from TCC and I graduated magna cum laude. I did not get that because I was smarter than kids 25 years my junior. I did it because I applied myself and I worked hard, and I did it in spite of having to raise a family and work a full-time job. I want to finish something early now because this is the whole point. This is what ails Portsmouth Public Schools. I attended Western Branch in 7th grade in 1969. I had an elderly English teacher named Mrs. Duke. She made each of us come to the front of the room and recite a 20-second essay, and it scared the living daylights out of me. And I never realized or appreciated then just how much it would impact my life 45 years later. And I'm going to quote it to you right now. I never forgot it. As backward as I was in 7th grade, I never had to write it down. I never forgot it. It made that big of an impression on me. And education is a conquest, not a bequest. It cannot be given. It must be achieved. For the value of an education lies not in its possession, but in the struggle to secure it. That essay was attributed to a man named Elbert Hubbard. He was a very brilliant writer, philosopher, and ran a publishing company at the turn of the century. He died on the Lusitania. Think about that. And I'd like the school board to think about that when they start going around telling us they have no surpluses or have surpluses or whatever, and then turn around and backtrack on what they say. Think about that when you fund the schools. We need to raise the bar. It has destroyed our school system to lower the bar just for diversity. Does anybody have any comments before I return to my seat?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Our next speaker is Mr. Clyde Toller, and he's followed by Ms. Jill Kelly.
Good evening. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Member of Council, City Manager, City Attorney, new Sergeant R. Ms. White and her great staff, good afternoon. At this time, I come before you. I'm glad some of you up there are not military officers. This shirt here you can't starch. Khaki shirt you start. This one here dry clean on it. So if this thing here was starch, I would knowing that Major Whitehurst sitting up there, he would call me quick out of uniform. So you got to make sure you're in uniform, because I'm glad that some of you don't know, because you've never been in the military, so you wouldn't know. But anyway, Memorial Day, back in my day, Memorial Day was originally called Decoration Day. And the first time it was celebrated was way back there in 5th of May, 1868. So this is 128 years. So Miss White have did a good job during her 7 years. And I have served the military, United States Army. I went to Europe, World War II. I served in the Marine Corps, Vietnam, and Korea, and peacetime. But I'm one of the lucky ones. But there's many more that did not come back home. There's a lot of, you see the MIA flag flying, there's a lot of still missing that we may never come home. But Portsmouth is a great day for Memorial Day, and I noticed the parade now. We have lots of people at the parade now. Since we changed it back over to High Street, the parade is great now. When we headed over London Boulevard, we was kind of a little raggedy. But Miss White and I think Councilman Simmons back here during the time, they got it together and they put it back on High Street. This was the greatest thing you could ever did. I missed one parade since 1984 because I went some sailing to be with some more veterans. But anyway, I will be riding in the parade. And when I come by, Mr. Hurd, I hope you remember, because I'm going to let you know if you didn't do it right. But I want to say we have a lot of veterans that's sitting right up there on their council seat. And I know you will be at the parade. And you're one of the lucky ones, too, because anytime you see any of us still here, you know we're one of the lucky ones that came back. But this is a great day, and if you can, say something nice when you see a veteran, tell him thank you for your service. Because this is a great country. I've been to many of them, and I tell you, you'll be surprised at what you see, and you'll be glad you're from America. I know a lot of us don't appreciate it. We do a lot of dumb things, good things, but you really should be proud that you live in America. And I can tell anybody that because I've been through it and I know it. I was doing the time segregation in the military service, but everybody died, everybody's blood is red, so we're going to move on from that. We don't look at that now. All we look at now is our wounded veterans that we have, warriors that we got over here in the hospital. And maybe next year we'll have one of them to lead the parade. And I think this would be a great thing to put two of them up there, one maybe with no legs or arms or whatever, if I be around. But if I don't, then you can come up there to the cemetery, Hardin Cemetery, put a little rose on my grave. But anyway, I want to thank each and every one of them. I want to thank the citizens of Portsmouth because they've been very kind to me. Everybody been very nice throughout this city, and I hope everybody be at the parade. And you people that sitting at home, get up and come to the parade. Bring your chairs with you. You can sit down and watch the parade too. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Major. Sergeant Major, I don't know if you know this, gentlemen, but today at 3 o'clock, I actually went over to Providence Place and recognized Mr. John Falcon Jr. He turned 90 years old today. He was a World War II veteran, lived in the Douglas Park area of Portsmouth, and actually wanted to let me know he stayed in the same house for 67 years.
Yeah, I know.
And some of the things that you just mentioned, I mentioned to him and the other seniors there about what Tom Brokaw coined the greatest generation and the things that your generation did, fought the war, came home and built a lot of these institutions and things that we all fight over now. We all want to put toes on. We all want to be red and blue. But a lot of these things were created and built by your generation. And we appreciate your comments. And I conveyed that to Mr. Falcon here. And he was proudest about his 67 years in the same house in Douglas Park. Said he lived on Carver Circle. I see you shaking your head. You know him. Well, and he also was proud. He's the longest serving deacon at Noble Street Baptist Church. So I say, yes, sir. That was his comment. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Did you know him?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right. Very good. Madam Clerk?
Ms. Jill Kelly, and she's followed by Ms. Terry Danaher.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I am Jill Kelly. I live at 4404 Southampton Arch. And this is hard.
That's right. Take your time.
I have 2 special needs children. One of them works right over here at Chesapeake Services. But because of where we live, she's not entitled to ride public transportation. Because of how the city of Portsmouth has set up their bus routes, in order for her to ride the handy van, we have to live within 3/4 of a mile of any established bus route. So I have to get up every morning, take her to work. She loves going to work. She works right over here on 7th Street by the new, whatever that new building is you guys are building over there. And she comes home every day at 12:30. Well, my other special needs child is in school at Churchland Middle in Mrs. Clayton's class. I love her. She's a great teacher. But because of how limited our public transportation is here in Portsmouth, she can't go out and just do anything she wants as an adult because I haven't had to put her in a home yet. She doesn't have to live in assisted living because she can still live with her parents. If we could increase the bus routes or even get HRT to change maybe some of their rules, some of our citizens here in Portsmouth could be more active, could go out and raise revenue for the city because they have an income. She does not get paid full minimum wage because she has to also help pay for her assistant to help her work. So if I put her on a private taxi or one of these unspecialized HRT buses, it will cost her anywhere from $8 to $12 one way. But if I don't take her to work, she doesn't get paid. She doesn't get to visit with her friends. So what do? How can Portsmouth fix this situation? She's a taxpayer. She goes and votes every time we vote. She votes for you guys. But she can't get to where she needs to get without one of her parents being home to take her. So that limits what she's allowed to do in this city. And this is a good city. I like Portsmouth. It has its quirks. It's a Commonwealth. I haven't got all used to a Commonwealth quirks. My father was active duty Air Force. We went everywhere. My husband's retired Navy. We went everywhere. But now she wants to be as independent as possible, but can't because you guys don't have services available to them. What do we do to fix this?
First of all, let me thank you for getting through that and to let you know that myself and Vice Mayor Whitehurst serve as commissioners on HRT, and after this is over, we'd like to talk with you and see if we can't help you in that manner.
Okay,
also
you.
want to let you know that I was extremely honored with Judge Bray and Mr. Bob Ashton from Town Bank for the grand opening of the Chesapeake Service Center over there, and they were elated, and I got to tell you, they're extremely proud.
They're very proud of
what they
their building.
do. They're very involved. I had several came up to let me know they voted for me, and then they walked us around and wanted to show us the washing area, the folding area, and trust me, we didn't leave until we saw the whole process.
You wouldn't be allowed to.
Because they wanted us to see it all, and so we stayed. The Judge Bray and myself and Mr. Ashton. But thank you very much.
It took them 2 years to get that building back. It took them 2 years of living in a little bitty place, trying to do their job. But they all stayed because that's what they like to do. That gets them out. That gets them active. That gets them somebody to be with besides locked up in a home.
But again, it made us all proud because, again, there was a fire there that destroyed that facility, and how we rallied as a city and a region to bring that back, and the businesses and everybody that contributed was something that gave chill bumps to most of us, and that's the beauty in us helping and doing what we're doing. But Mr. Whitehurst and I will talk to you afterwards, and we'll see if we can't help you.
Okay,
and thank you for what you did. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Our next speaker is Ms. Terry Danaher, and she's followed by Ms. Pat Simons.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, our new Sergeant at Arms, Rob, and everybody in the audience. I'm following with another transportation issue, and in case you can't tell what it is, it's about the tolls yet again. Okay, everybody. I'm here basically to clear up any misconception that people have that the current contract with Elizabeth River Crossing is a done deal, as keeps being said. And I believe that people may have seen the gantries or part of the gantries going up recently and thought, oh my God, it's a done deal. I have been on the news. I'm so famous now. I'm here on public television here. Basically to make my case that there is no done deal yet because there is still a lawsuit pending. And the lawsuit challenges the legality of the whole contract, the constitutionality of the contract. And the brief has been written, and we are still raising money. And one of the reasons I'm standing here is to continue to raise money. So for people who have not yet donated, we are still collecting money at www.notollshr.org, or I didn't get this off my printer because I left my house too soon. So while the public work session was going on, unfortunately it was a nice long one, so I had time to be artistic, I made another sign just where people could send checks. And checks can be sent to CAPPAC, which is Citizens for Accountability in Politics. It's a political action committee that is fundraising for the no tolls. That would go to my address at 413 Dinwiddie Street, Portsmouth 23704. Because a lot of people just want to send a check, and I appreciate that. Please do not send cash through the mail. I have bumper stickers and flyers for anybody who's interested. They're both free. And I would just like to say we are having a fundraising event. We're having what we're calling a resale market and rally on June 15th and 16th at 5000 Portsmouth Boulevard. One of our supporters is letting us use the commercial property there to have a big sale, a flea market. People are donating items. We are happy to accept items that we can actually sell. Please, we do not want junk. I have enough junk that I could donate, but I'm going to hold off on that. Hours will be announced for that on Friday and Saturday, and we are asking people to please be generous. We are looking at having a concert at the Untitled Pavilion in the near future. We are speaking at all kinds of events, and we are making money. We're doing it. We're going to get there. So please keep an open mind. It's not a done deal. The lawsuit is out there. We need to maintain our momentum here and fight this battle. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And you did a good job the other day on television.
Yeah, I would have really liked to have had time, like 5 minutes to say everything, but, you know, they give you what they give you. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. To let you know, I think that the entity that can solve this problem short of a court settlement is going to be the members of the General Assembly. They're the only entity that can raise taxes or raise revenue. I made a statement, public statement, at a meeting where the mayor was not there. I made a statement on behalf of myself that we need to make sure that people on the General Assembly, the House and the Senate side understand what the impact is for this region, this city, to bear the burden alone to pay tolls. It's not the answer. The answer is going to be a mixture of sales tax and a gas tax, index gas tax. But short of that, I support the effort that's ongoing right now to have the courts to determine what is wrong with this particular effort by the governor and the General Assembly. Do nothing is not the answer. We need to make sure they understand that. So when you're talking to your members of the General Assembly, encourage them to have the courage, do the right thing. We need to have money not only for to build roads, but also to maintain them. We need to make sure there's some effort by the General Assembly to identify what the needs are, and then to find a suitable source to pay for it over a number of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vice Mayor. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Ms. Pat Simons is followed by our final speaker, Mr. Charles Greenhood.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, everyone. Pat Simons from Mimosa Road. I had just a couple comments that I wanted to make this evening about the ordinance that you all just voted on and passed. One point that I was concerned about, I did have clarified for me, but I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention anyway. It states that the school board did return the $9.9 million, and then it says that you're appropriating $4.9 million from those funds to the Portsmouth Public Schools operating budget. The CFO's memo, which she had done dated May 4th, stated that council had adopted a resolution which states that the city can reappropriate school surpluses to approved capital projects, not to the operating fund, to approved capital projects. But I've since had it clarified for me that a resolution is not law-abiding. You know, you don't have to follow those resolutions. You can just throw them out there for whatever, put them up against the wall and hope they stick. My second point with that was on in giving back the schools $4.9 million for their operating budget. The CFO's memo of May 4th states the school's request for local funding uses FY 2010-11 budget as the comparison basis. Given the relatively large general fund surpluses each year, the budget may overstate the school's expected expenditure level. Since the schools submitted their budget on March 26, the state adopted a budget that includes additional funding for education. The superintendent noted that Portsmouth's share of the additional funds for FY 2012-13 would be about $1.2 million. With this new state revenue, the total school budget with the city manager recommended city funding would represent a $10.4 million or 8% increase over FY 2010-11 actual expenditures and transfers. So their budget represented $10.4 million more than what they needed, and you're just giving them back another $4.9 million on top of that. I never heard any discussion on this. I've been to the workshops and the council meetings. I've never heard a word about this. And now you're giving them 4.9 on top of the 10.4 that they've asked for. Too much? You know, there are some things that just don't add up. And then last week when I was here and I spoke on the budget, I stated that the superintendent in a presentation on May 6th had stated the school budget was around $131 million. But the budget in the paper, in the currents, shows total appropriation for education of $164 million. And when I was here last week, I asked why the difference? What is that $30 million? So can anybody give me an answer tonight? I'm back. No. Nobody knows what the $30 million difference is. I mean, this was published in the Currents as the city budget, $164 million appropriated for education. Yet the superintendent says it's 130 or 131. Citizens here don't have access to a line item budget. So there's something we don't know. And can you see how it leads us to wonder? What is that difference? Where is that 30 million? No. All righty. Thanks anyway.
Thank you, ma'am. Good night. Mr. Moody?
Ms. Simon, I'm going to ask our city manager, perhaps he can call on a member of staff to try to answer that question. Certainly a valid question. In fact, some of us on council got told by certain members of the school board, we ask too many questions. And looking at some of their meetings, I would like to suggest that they start asking some questions because this has not been a smooth budget process in coming up with the proper level of funding that we need to appropriate to the school system. Not smooth at all. And no wonder members of the public like yourself have questions about that funding and what are we giving and what is the proper level of funding and why are they getting so much? School says they're not getting enough. So it's a lot of moving pieces there that doesn't leave anybody with a high comfort level. But with that said, I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Moody, members of council, and Ms. Simons. Good evening. Of course, I can't speak to or address comments that were made by the school superintendent. I'm not sure what that might have been. What was advertised in the Currents and normally what council's authority would be is to appropriate all dollars that would be expenditures for the schools, keeping in mind those dollars would be made up of federal funds, state funds, and the local. So that should represent your total 164 number.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
That's one of the reasons why I think we need to have an auditor that reports to the city council so we can, where we send our money, we ought to be able to audit it. So I hope the council will relook at funding the auditor position.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Our final speaker is Mr. Charles Greenhood.
Good evening, Councilman, Mayor.
Sir, how are you doing?
Mr. Oaksman, Sergeant at Arms. I've complimented the City Council and our fine mayor in the past about the resolution against tunnel tolls. You stood by very firmly so far. While other cities close by, mayors of other cities have stood silent. Our city is at risk. Our region is at risk, and our entire state is at risk, just like a cardiovascular disease or cancer. Because once the tunnel tolls start in the downtown, midtown tunnels, we will have the Ring of Fire, which was so adamantly portrayed in the paper several months ago. But now they're talking about tolling Interstate 95. And your recent newspaper article, the coal fields in Virginia and West Virginia are going to be tolled as well, the roads accessing those fields. Our city is at risk, our region is at risk, our entire state, the Commonwealth is at risk. And this might be a little unorthodox, but I submit that all the money that we're talking about in your budgets and the millions and millions of dollars that are surplus, we just need $150,000 to finish this lawsuit, to get it filed. We already raised over $30,000. We don't need much more to go or a commitment for the law firm to institute this lawsuit. However, I've been meeting with a lot of transportation companies, and they're rising to the occasion. Met with the Inland Transportation Board today, and most every participant in the Inland Transportation Board, they are extremely aware, and they are very ready to go. They're soliciting their membership. So is the Tidewater Motor Transit Association, the Virginia Truck Association. It's pervasive now. We've got the attention of the shippers, and now we're getting the attention very shortly of the customers of the shippers, the Walmarts, the Targets, the people, the companies that are going to be very affected because of the end product, the cost of the goods and services that are going to be raised. This may be a little unorthodox, but I'm asking the city to pony up. We're ground central here. We are at the center, the epicenter of this horrible thing. And if we lose this lawsuit, it won't be because we didn't try hard. We can win this lawsuit. This lawsuit's going to be heard in Portsmouth. And we have constitutional issues in the lawsuit that are absolutely winnable. If we win on one, the game is over. They will not build, well, they may build, but they are not going to toll us. So for the expense of $150,000, maybe a little bit more, the more you put in, the more effort is going to be there when we need it. And the other side's prepared to spend millions of dollars. This is David and Goliath. We're David, and the ERC is Goliath. And these companies have a lot at stake, and they're not going to lay down after we've won the first case. They probably will not win. However, we need the insurance. We need to make sure that we have a lawsuit to file, and it can be filed very soon. So I'm asking the City Council if they can find some way to solicit from your own coffers money to support this lawsuit. This may not be possible, but let's look. There's a lot of money going out somewhere, and for the people that are at risk here, we're talking about we can become the heroes of the Commonwealth. The city can back this and be known to stand up when other cities and other mayors do not. And for whatever reason, they're not standing up. Some people can probably figure that out. Whatever reason there is, we have one big reason that our city can stand up, and that's because we believe in the resolution that we passed, but let's back it up with some help for the lawsuit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, very much. Let me just say, as you and most people know, that this transportation issue is now being heard across this state. And a lot of that is because of the hard work that a lot of people in this room have done to make sure that it did get on the front burner. The governor, transportation secretary, all of the General Assembly now wanting to discuss this. There's possible talk about a special session. I know myself and all of the mayors in what's called the Golden Crescent will be meeting in 2 weeks in Richmond. That's all of the mayors and chairs in Northern Virginia, Richmond, and Hampton Roads to discuss and talk and send the message to the legislators that this has got to stop. We need a comprehensive plan. We need funding for that plan, and it's going to take all of us getting in and having a conversation about how we pay for this. If you remember, probably a week ago, the Secretary of Transportation mentioned at the rate we're going in about 5 years, that whole fund's going to be dried up. That's totally unacceptable for a Commonwealth and for us to be irresponsible in the way we manage and handle taxpayers' dollars and not keep and maintain the infrastructure and the things of that. So I just want to say, sir, everyone in this state now is talking, and everyone is using as a model the people in Hampton Roads and the things that we have done to elevate and get this there. Now, that's not much of a consolation. Again, we want this deal off the table. It's not funded right. The whole deal, in our view, is not right. But the fact that everyone from the western part of the state to up in the northern part of the state are talking about the people in Hampton Roads and the pushback that we've put there, we've at least put this thing now on center stage. So I'm not saying giving up, not saying pat ourselves on the back, but we've done something here that I think wake up the entire Commonwealth. So, and you've been part of that effort, and most people out here. So Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
That doesn't answer your money piece, and I think
No,
you said
no.
fine mayor. Did you say fine mayor? I was a fine mayor.
You're
I
a
thought I
fine
heard
mayor.
that. Yeah, thank you for that.
Maybe Portsmouth's finest mayor. However, I will add to what you just said, if you permit me to.
Sure.
In the next session of the General Assembly, there's going to be a bill brought up for raising the sales tax through the entire state. And you're right about the transportation fund is going to be expiring probably in the next 5 years. So by 2017, we'll have no more funds. We'll have no more funds for repairs, road work, and maintenance, and we'll have no more funds in the lockbox or whatever lockbox there was for bridge, for construction. When that happens, we'll have no one to blame but our legislators and ourselves for not pushing them. We need to get a message to the legislators. We need to get a strong message to the people we voted into office, and that message is they can't fail us again. We need to add to the sales tax. We need to add to the gas tax. We need to have money that forward funds any road projects, any transportation issues in the whole state. We need to protect our ports because we're at risk of losing our port. We're at risk of losing transportation companies that will go north and they'll go south. They'll go to Baltimore. They'll go to Savannah. They'll go to Charleston, South Carolina. They're going to go anywhere where there's not tolls that are going to affect the transportation. One company that has 100 trucks going through that tunnel every day will spend, if the tolls go in effect, spend $574,000 a year just for her 100 trucks a day that go through that tunnel. Sounds like a lot, but there are thousands of trucks that go through that tunnel every day, and this is the cost of doing that. It takes $300 to send a trailer from the port to Suffolk, where the Target export warehouse is. And adding another $15 or adding another $30 for the cost of the tunnel tolls is going to be something that Target will look at. And if Suffolk thinks they're not at risk of losing Target, and Norfolk isn't at risk at losing some of their transportation companies, they have to revisit the truth and the facts rather than fiction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. They're all aware of that. And again, let me also add the survey that was done by Christopher Newport University and the Virginia Pilot also verified that people in this region are fed up. They're not pleased with this deal, and almost 70% were in favor of a tax increase. So they're seeing all of that data, all of our legislators, because a lot of these and most of the meetings that I'm going for, the word they're using is they're looking for cover. Because remember, nobody wants to come from under the cover because you may not get reelected. They're looking for cover. So that survey gave them also cover that 80% of the people here think this is a bad deal, and almost 70% were in favor of a tax increase. But thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Greenhood's getting ready to leave without the answer to his question.
I'm sorry. Can you find $150,000 or more?
That was your question, but you were getting ready to leave town without...
I didn't think I'd get one right now.
Well, I asked that question to our city attorney probably about a month and a half, 2 months ago. And to cut to the chase, he told me no. But I'm going to turn it over to the city attorney, and he'll share some details on where that no came from.
Can I make one comment before I hear this?
No, let's let him do
Okay,
that.
go ahead.
Only the good mayor gave you all that extra time.
Thank you, sir. The great mayor.
Great.
Finest mayor.
Mr. Oaksman, in a word, can you?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, council members, what Councilman Moody has said is correct. We did discuss this question some time back. And the short answer is that the city does not have legal authority to contribute that money. But let me give you a little bit of a longer answer. At an earlier stage of the discussion and discussion of this issue in the community, Senator Lucas made some very wise comments, and the comments were in the nature of we're all in agreement about what the end result should be, that is, no tolls. We just are trying to go about it in different ways, and each of us needs to go about it in the ways that are right for us. And you've just heard Mayor Wright give a very long, very detailed explanation of the efforts that he and several other council members are making to avoid the imposition of tolls there. And I think we're all hopeful that Mayor Wright's efforts will be successful. But and so that is something very positive and hopefully very productive that the city government will be doing. But Virginia is a Dillon rule state, and what that means is local governments can only take actions that are specifically authorized by law or reasonably inferred from specific powers that are granted. And there simply is no law authorizing the expenditure of public funds by a city to pay for funding someone else's lawsuit. This is not a lawsuit to which the city is a party. It is not a lawsuit to which the city could or should be a party. And the city cannot legally fund legal expenses that are incurred by someone else in their lawsuit. So there are the short answer and the long answer for you.
Thank you, Mr. Oakson. Thank you, sir, and good night.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, Madam Clerk, are we done?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're adjourned. Thank you.